Maya Chen had not touched the sky in 3 years. That alone would break most people. But what made it truly unbearable was that flying had never just been her career. It had been her heartbeat, her identity, the very language her soul spoke. From the age of 7, she had pressed her small face against airport glass and whispered promises to the clouds. She kept every single one of those promises, eventually becoming one of the United States Air Force's most decorated female pilots. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, a routine physical revealed a minor but disqualifying heart arrhythmia, and with 3 cold words permanently medically grounded, her entire world went silent. She took a job as an air traffic controller at Edwards Air Force Base, because being near the sky felt better than being nowhere near it at all. She told herself it was practical. She told herself she had made peace with it. But here's the thing about wounds that never fully close: proximity doesn't heal them. It reopens them, slowly, quietly, every single day. She would watch jets streak through the California sky like silver prayers and feel something collapse inside her chest each time. She smiled anyway. She was always smiling anyway. That was Maya's quiet tragedy, the kind that nobody around her could see, because she had become so extraordinarily skilled at carrying it without letting it show. If you are watching this right now and you know that feeling, the one where you carry something so heavy but keep walking like it weighs absolutely nothing, then you already understand her more deeply than most people in her life ever did. And if you do know that feeling, stay with this story, because it was made for you. One crisp November morning, with clouds moving low and fast across the base, Maya was guiding a formation of F-22 Raptors through a complex training corridor. The lead pilot, call sign Ghost, was navigating a particularly demanding maneuver when his instruments flickered with a subtle, dangerous irregularity. Maya caught the anomaly in his telemetry 2 full seconds before he even registered it himself. Her voice stayed calm, precise, and completely steady, the voice of someone who had lived inside those cockpits for years, who knew every shudder and whisper and heartbeat of those machines. She walked Ghost through the correction with the fluency of someone who was not guiding from the ground at all, but thinking from 30,000 feet above it. The entire formation landed cleanly. No drama, no incident report, no fanfare. She thought nothing more of it. 3 weeks later, Colonel James Hargrove called her into his office. She assumed it was procedural, a review, a routine commendation perhaps, the kind of administrative paperwork that military life generates in endless supply. She straightened her uniform, knocked twice, and stepped inside. What she found were for people she had not expected. Colonel Hargrove, a civilian physician, a senior representative from the Pentagon's Aerospace Medicine Division, and Ghost himself, unmasked, young, with dark, serious eyes that carried a quiet and unmistakable respect. Ghost's real name was Captain Daniel Reyes. He set a thick folder on the table and slid it slowly toward her. "I've been flying for 9 years, he said, his voice low and deliberate. "No controller has ever caught something that fast. Not even close." Maya looked at the folder without touching it. She already felt something enormous shifting in the room, something fragile and irreversible at the same time, like the moment before a storm breaks. The Pentagon physician spoke next. She explained carefully that new research in cardiac aviation medicine had recently produced a landmark protocol that applied specifically to arrhythmia profiles identical to Maya's. A new monitoring implant, no larger than a grain of rice, could now provide real-time cardiac data during flight, fully satisfying the safety requirements that had previously made her condition permanently disqualifying. The approval process was still lengthy, the road ahead was still demanding, but the door, she said with quiet certainty, was no longer sealed shut. And then Colonel Hargrove looked directly at her and spoke for words that rewrote 3 years of silence. "We nominated your name." Maya did not cry, not then. She simply turned to the window, to the flat gray November sky beyond the glass, and felt something inside her that had been held underwater for a very long time finally break the surface and breathe open air. The real emotion came later, alone in her car in the parking lot, when she pressed her forehead against the steering wheel and shook with something that had no clean name. Part grief for the years already lost, part gratitude so enormous and overwhelming it had no edges she could find. The road back was not instant, and she never expected it to be. There were months of exhaustive testing, requalification flights, and medical evaluations conducted by people who monitored her every breath and heartbeat with careful clinical precision. She welcomed every single second of it, because Maya had learned something in those 3 grounded years that she never could have discovered while flying. That love for something is not diminished by losing it. It deepens. It becomes more deliberate, more honest, more fiercely grateful than it ever was before. On the morning of her first solo flight back in an F-22, she sat alone in the cockpit on the tarmac for a long, still moment before taxiing. Captain Reyes stood near the hangar, and when she looked over he gave her one single nod, the kind that carries everything without needing a single word. She nodded back. Then she pushed the throttle forward, felt the runway fall away beneath her, and climbed up through the low gray clouds into a sky so impossibly blue, so wide and clean and forgiving. that it felt less like airspace and more like a homecoming she had been earning for 3 long years. Some things are taken from us without warning and without apology, and we learn to keep moving anyway, not because the loss ever fully stops hurting, but because somewhere deep inside, we simply refuse to let it be the final chapter of our story. If Maya's journey stirred something real in you today, share it with one person who needs to hear it. And if you are still standing on the ground, still waiting for your sky, keep waiting, keep showing up every single day, because sometimes the call comes from a direction you never once expected, and when it arrives, it carries your name.